Good Erev Shabbos Parshas Ha'azinu. Story told about a guy that was riding his motorboat down a very narrow river. Up ahead, he saw another boat in his path. Honked his horn, waved his arms, screamed and shouted. Didn't work. Collision occurred. And the owner of the motorboat started screaming, "You idiot! Why couldn't you get out of the way? Didn't you see me? Didn't you hear?" Until he looked into the other boat and he realized there was nobody there. He knew that he had nobody to blame but himself. Brene Brown talks about how blame is our way of dealing with discomfort or with pain. And blaming others is not the healthiest way of doing so. It's something we instinctively do to ease that discomfort. But if we really want to deal with the situation properly, we have to own it, own our personal responsibility. In Parshas Ha'azinu, this week's Torah reading, we describe Hashem as Hatzur Tamim Pa'aloi Ki Kol Derachav Mishpat Keil Emunah Ve'ein Avel Tzadik Ve'yasharu. Why are we referring to Hashem as Hatzur, as a rock? So the Kli Yakar suggests that Hatzur refers to the fact that God created us. And when things go wrong, we have a tendency to blame Him. Hey, this is how I was created. I was set up for failure. There's no way I can overcome this test and temptation. To this, the Torah responds, Hatzur Tamim Pa'aloi, Hashem's creations are perfect. Kikal Derachav Mishpat, everything He does is just. Kel Emunah, He rewards those who do good. Ve'ein Avel, and He punishes those who deserve punishment. And when something goes wrong, we've got nobody to blame but ourselves. And when something does go good, you deserve credit. There's a story of a king whose favorite pastime was hunting. And he used to go with his personal doctor with him, and he went into his forest to hunt for game. And one time his finger got snagged in a tree and got infected and started throbbing with pain. And King got kind of worried, but the doctor said, "Don't worry. Listen, I'm bandaging up and everything should be fine." A few days later, there's some sort of infection had set in and the finger was all swollen. And the doctor tried to reassure him that, he was taking antibiotics and everything was going to be okay. But finally, a few days later, it reached a point where there was no choice left but to amputate that finger. When the king awoke and realized what had happened and the enormity of it sort of hit him, he was livid. He was so mad at this doctor. "What did you do to me?" And he ordered the doctor to be taken to prison and left there until he died. A few days later, he went hunting again. This time he had to go alone. He was attacked by savages, cannibals, taken hostage. And having found this king, they wrapped him up in leaves and all sorts of other ceremonial adornments. And they placed him on a wooden plank and carried him to the altar where they were going to offer him as a sacrifice and then eat him. And they were just about to light the fire or whatever was going to happen when all of a sudden, the leader of the savages raised his hands, halted the ceremonial chants, and looked at the king's hand and showed it to everybody. And no one could believe it. The king was missing a finger. He was blemished. He couldn't be a sacrifice. So they had no further use for him. They untied him and they set him free. And the king ran. He ran to get home as fast as he could. And when he got to the palace gates, he said, "Take me straight to the prison. Doctor, doctor," he said to the doctor, "come out. You're a free man. You saved my life." And the doctor, after hearing the story that the king had shared, replied that the king had it all wrong. "Your Majesty, I can't thank you enough for putting me in prison. If you hadn't done that, I would have been with you on this hunting trip. And I have all my 10 fingers. They would have taken me instead of you and sacrificed me. So thank you for placing me in the dungeon." Here you have a man without a finger and a man thrown into a prison. And they're both thanking each other because each one of them saved the other person's life. The deeds of the mighty rock are perfect, for all of his ways are just. A faithful God without injustice, he is righteous and upright. Real belief in Hashem might sometimes entail, God forbid, losing a finger. And deliberately contextualizing that as something good. Being thrown into a dungeon and knowing that it's good for the best. Being frustrated in accomplishing an understood goal and doing one's best to make the subsequent reality as positive as possible. The good and bad, the mistakes and the setbacks. Everything we experience in life, all of them come from the same God. He's the source of everything. Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad. Listen, Israel, Hashem, the name of God which represents his compassion and kindness. And Elokeinu, the name of God which signifies his strict judgment and justice, is Echad. It's all one. And which one is it? It's Hashem Echad. It's the compassion and kindness that's the basic bottom reality of everything that comes from Hashem. Let me share with you one more quick story about the 10-year-old boy who lost his left arm in a devastating car accident. It was decided to have him study judo as a therapy. And he started beginning lessons with an old Japanese judo master, and he was doing fairly well, but he couldn't understand why after 3 months of training, he'd only been taught one particular move and throw. So finally, the boy said, shouldn't I be learning more moves than just this one? And the master replied, this is the only move you know, but this is the only move you'll ever need to know. Several months later, the boy was taken to his first tournament. He won his first 2 matches. The third match was a bit more difficult. But after some time, his opponent became impatient and charged. And the boy deftly used his one move to win the match. He's now in the finals. And the match takes place. The opponent makes a critical mistake. He drops his guard, and instantly the boy uses his one move to pin him. And the boy won the match and the tournament, and he was the champion. On the way home, he asked his sensei, how did I win that tournament with only one move? And his teacher replied, you won for 2 reasons. First, you've almost mastered one of the most difficult throws in all of judo. And second, the only known defense for that move is for your opponent to grab your left arm. I wish you a good Shabbat, and that everything should be all right.